You know too much for them to handle. There comes a moment in your life when you realize that you've outgrown certain people, not because you changed too much, but because you finally saw too clearly. You began to recognize intentions behind smiles, motives behind actions, and truth behind every mask. And the moment your eyes opened, the world around you shifted. You became someone they could no longer play with, control, or manipulate, not because you fought back, but because you learned, because you observed, because you paid attention. Somewhere along your journey, you became too wise for their games, too discerning for their lies, and too strong for their insecurities. And now, your presence alone makes certain people uneasy. Your silence makes them nervous. Your growth exposes everything they tried to keep hidden. You didn't ask for this gift, this awareness, this intuition, this sharpened spirit, but it changed everything. It elevated you, separated you, and protected you. And that's why some people can't handle you anymore. You know too much, you see too much, you understand too much. They can't cover their tracks around you. They can't disguise their intentions. They can't pretend in your presence. You became the truth they fear, the mirror they avoid, the awakening they never expected. You are no longer someone they can deceive, and that alone makes you powerful. So as you step into this message today, understand this. Your awareness is not a burden, it is your armor. Your discernment is not a weakness, it is your strength. And the very things they feared you would discover are the very things that prepared you for your next level. You didn't lose people, you simply learned who they were. And once you learn, you can't unlearn. Once you see, you can't unsee. That is why you know too much for them to handle. Your awareness makes you uncomfortable to those who hide behind illusions. There comes a point in your journey when awareness becomes your greatest strength, but also the very thing that separates you from the crowd. Awareness is not just something you gain, it is something you earn through pain, observation, endurance, and experience. When you start seeing people for who they truly are, when you start noticing the shifts in tone, the hidden meanings behind their words, the motives behind their actions, everything changes. People begin to respond to you differently. Not because you confronted them, not because you called them out, but because your presence alone now carries a truth they can't hide from. You became the one who watches carefully, listens deeply, and understands silently. And that makes you uncomfortable for those who thrive behind illusions. Most people rely on others being unaware. They rely on people being too distracted, too trusting, too naive to notice what's really going on. But your mind doesn't sleep, your spirit doesn't ignore, your intuition doesn't shut off. You can feel when something is off. You can sense when someone isn't being honest. You pick up on energy before you pick up on words. And this level of awareness makes you someone that certain individuals will avoid because being around you means they must get honest. They must drop the act. They must reveal what they've been trying so hard to conceal. Your awareness became your shield. You stopped walking blindly into situations and relationships. You stopped giving people the benefit of the doubt when their actions clearly showed otherwise. You stopped believing promises that were spoken with lips but broken with actions. And the more you learned, the more you observed, the more people realized they couldn't fool you anymore. They couldn't pull you into the same traps they used to. When you became wiser, they became uncomfortable. When you became discerning, they became distant. Understand this. Some people were only comfortable with you when you didn't know your worth, when you didn't question their behavior, when you accepted the bare minimum, when you tolerated what shouldn't have been tolerated, when you allowed them to take, use, and drain without resistance. But the moment you learned, the moment you grew, the moment you awakened, That comfort disappeared. Your awareness exposed their intentions. Your clarity exposed their character. Your strength exposed their weakness. And that exposure is what they fear. Awareness is not loud, it is powerful. You don't have to shout. You don't have to confront. You don't have to argue. The quiet understanding you carry does more damage than any words ever could. People feel it. They feel seen. They feel uncovered. They feel like they can't hide behind their usual excuses, manipulations, or performances. They know you see the truth even when you don't say a word. And nothing terrifies a dishonest person more than someone who sees the truth in silence. You carry a kind of perception that can't be taught in a classroom. It comes from being betrayed. It comes from being mistreated. It comes from being lied to. It comes from trusting the wrong people and suffering the consequences. Your awareness was born from breaking, healing, rebuilding, and rising. You didn't become wise overnight. You earned this level of understanding through battles most people never saw you fight. And because your awareness came with a cost, you protect it. You don't ignore red flags. You don't give second chances to people who showed their true colors on the first. You don't allow access to people who have already shown they don't deserve it. You've learned too much to go backward. Some people will call you cold, distant, or guarded, but they don't understand that you're not closed. You're careful. You're not bitter. You're selective. You're not hard-hearted. You're wise-hearted. You don't let just anyone close because not everyone deserves to know you. Not everyone deserves to hear your spirit. Not everyone deserves to be in your life. You've learned that access is a privilege, and your awareness protects that privilege. And let me tell you this, people fear what they cannot manipulate. They fear what they cannot control. They fear what they cannot deceive. And you are now someone they cannot bend to their will. You no longer fall for flattery. You no longer fall for emotional tricks. You no longer fall for false promises. Your awareness has freed you from the illusions that once blinded you. So yes, you make them uncomfortable, not because you are wrong, but because you are right. Not because you are difficult, but because you are discerning. Not because you change too much, but because you stopped accepting too little. Your awareness is your power. Your awareness is your protection. Your awareness is your advantage. You are not hard to handle. You just know too much for them to hide. Your growth revealed what they tried to conceal. There will always be a moment in your journey when your growth outpaces someone's expectations, and suddenly the truth they never wanted you to see begins to surface. Growth isn't just about becoming better, it's about becoming clearer. It sharpens your vision, strengthens your intuition, and opens your eyes to the realities that were once hidden. And the more you grow, the harder it becomes for people to hide who they truly are. That's why some people start to act differently around you, not because you did anything wrong, but because your evolution exposed what they tried to conceal. Your growth illuminated what their behavior tried to disguise. It uncovered motives behind actions that once seemed innocent. It revealed patterns that you never noticed before. The things they used to get away with don't work anymore, not because you're suspicious, but because you're wiser. You don't ignore red flags now. You don't dismiss your instincts. You don't make excuses for behavior that deserves accountability. Your growth made you see that some people were never for you. They were only for what they could get from you. And that realization changes everything. Some people were comfortable with you as long as you stayed small, predictable, and unaware. As long as you didn't question their inconsistencies, their broken promises, or their hidden agendas, they felt safe. But when you started growing in understanding, growing in emotional maturity, growing in purpose, growing in faith, their comfort turned into fear, because now you can see through the cracks they tried to cover. Now you can sense intentions they hoped you'd overlook. Now you can detect lies before they're spoken. Your growth removed the blindfold. And once you see the truth, you cannot unsee it. Growth doesn't just elevate you, it exposes everything around you. The moment you rise, you see higher, you see farther, you see deeper, you understand more. That's why certain friendships collapsed, certain relationships fell apart, certain connections faded. It wasn't rejection, it was revelation. You didn't lose them, you simply discovered who they were, even when you didn't want to. You discovered who was loyal, who was using you, who was threatened by you, and who was pretending all along. The truth is, people hide behind many things: charm, flattery, false vulnerability, temporary support, selective honesty. But your growth stripped away their disguises. You started to notice things you never paid attention to before: how their energy shifted when you succeeded, how they only supported you when it benefited them, how they disappeared when you needed them, how their tone changed when you no longer met their expectations. Your growth revealed their intentions, and that revelation was necessary. Understand something. People who have nothing to hide will celebrate your growth. They will cheer for you, uplift you, motivate you, and stand beside you. But people who depended on your blind spots will sabotage, belittle, or distance themselves when you grow. Not because you hurt them, but because your evolution exposed their true character. Growth doesn't push the right people away, it exposes the wrong ones. Some individuals only stayed in your life because they believed you didn't know better. They thought you would tolerate anything. They thought you would accept the bare minimum forever. They thought you would remain the same predictable version of yourself. But growth changed the entire script. You learned how to say no. You learned how to set boundaries. You learned how to walk away. You learned how to value your peace over their approval. And the moment you did, they realized they could no longer manipulate the story. Your growth made them uncomfortable because it forced them to face the truth about themselves. It forced them to see what they lacked: integrity, honesty, loyalty, consistency. It forced them to see the part they played in your suffering. It forced them to confront the reality that they mistook your kindness for weakness. But now, your strength demands accountability. And accountability is something many people run from. Your evolution has turned you into someone they can no longer mislead, someone they can no longer take advantage of, someone they can no longer control. And because of that, they distance themselves, not because you changed too much, but because you finally changed enough. Growth is a spotlight. It shines on your path, but it also shines on theirs. It shows you who's moving with you and who's standing still. It shows you who's genuine and who's pretending. It shows you who's aligned with your future and who belongs in your past. And while the truth may sting, it is always a blessing, because what you discover through growth guides you toward the next chapter of your life. The chapter where you are surrounded by people who can handle who you are becoming, not just who you used to be. Your growth is not the problem, your growth is the answer. The problem was the people who thought you would remain in the same place forever. They counted on your silence. They counted on your forgiveness. They counted on your confusion. But they never expected your awakening. They never expected your wisdom. They never expected your breakthrough. So stand tall in your evolution. Don't shrink for anyone. Don't apologize for becoming wiser. Don't feel guilty for seeing what you needed to see. Your growth didn't ruin anything, it revealed everything. And the truth is, some people couldn't handle who you became because who you became exposed who they always were. Your spirit discerns what their words try to hide. There is a rare strength that comes from having a spirit that listens beyond words, a strength that doesn't rely on what people say, but on what they mean, a strength that isn't fooled by charm, flattery, or well-rehearsed speeches. When your spirit is awake, when your intuition is sharp, When your inner voice becomes louder than the noise around you, you begin to discern everything that others try so carefully to hide. And once you develop this level of spiritual clarity, you become someone that not everyone can handle. Because the truth is this: words can lie, but energy cannot. Words can be rehearsed, but intention cannot. Someone can disguise their tone, soften their voice, and speak beautifully crafted promises, but your spirit will recognize the inconsistency the moment it enters the room. Your spirit picks up what the mind overlooks. It feels what the eyes cannot see. It warns you before the storm comes. And that spiritual sensitivity makes you powerful in a world where many people depend on deception to survive. You're not hard to read, you're hard to fool. You're not overly cautious, you're spiritually aware. You're not paranoid, you're perceptive. There's a difference between being suspicious and being intuitive, and your intuition has saved you more times than you can count. It has guided you through relationships that were built on illusions. It has led you away from people who only meant you harm. It has kept you from trusting voices that spoke love but carried envy. Your spirit has protected you from battles you didn't even know were forming behind your back. This is why some people fear you, not because of your strength, but because of your sensitivity. They fear that you can feel their intentions even when they pretend to care. They fear that your spirit detects the jealousy behind their compliments. They fear that you sense the competition behind their kindness. They fear that you notice the resentment behind their smile. And the truth is, you do. You always have. You just didn't speak on it before. The gift of discernment isn't loud. It doesn't require confrontation. It doesn't demand explanations. It simply knows. It knows when someone's energy shifts. It knows when someone's loyalty fades. It knows when someone's words no longer match their actions. It knows when someone's presence brings peace or chaos. You've learned to trust this inner knowing because every time you ignored it, you paid the price. Every time you tried to second guess it, the truth revealed itself, eventually. And now you honor it. Now you listen to your spirit the first time. Now you trust that silent signal that whispers something is off. Now you walk away without needing proof, without needing closure, without needing to argue, because your spirit has learned that peace is more valuable than explanations. Your discernment has taught you that the moment someone's energy feels wrong, your distance becomes right. People who are used to manipulating others can't stand someone like you, someone who doesn't fall for appearances, someone who isn't swayed by sweet talk, someone who reads between the lines and beneath the surface. They don't know how to approach a person who sees life with spiritual depth. To them, you're unpredictable, you're unreachable, you're unmanipulable, and that threatens everything they rely on. Your spirit can tell when someone is using you. It can tell when someone is pretending. It can tell when someone is only loyal in convenience, but distant in sacrifice. It can tell when someone wants your presence, but not your well-being. It can tell when someone admires you in public, but resents you in private. This level of awareness exposes their intentions before their actions even reveal them. But understand this clearly: your discernment is not a weapon, it is a shield. It is God's way of whispering, "I'm protecting you." It is the spiritual alarm system built into your soul to keep you away from harm, from betrayal, from emotional traps, from spiritual entanglements that were never meant for you. It shows you the truth early so you don't invest in the wrong people deeply. It shows you who they are so you never forget who you are. Your spirit also discerns the good. It recognizes genuine hearts. It recognizes real love. It recognizes loyal souls. It recognizes people who carry light, kindness, and integrity. It helps you draw closer to individuals who nourish your growth instead of threatening it. because the same discernment that warns you about danger also guides you toward destiny. There will always be those who misunderstand you, who call you difficult, who label you as too much, simply because they can't deceive you. But do not shrink because of that. Do not dim your intuition to make others comfortable. Do not pretend you don't feel what you feel. If your spirit sees it, trust it. If your spirit senses it, believe it. If your spirit rejects it, walk away. Your discernment is a gift they cannot handle. It is the reason you escape situations that were designed to break you. It is the reason you are no longer accessible to everyone. It is the reason you've outgrown people who once had access to your heart. Your spirit became wiser, stronger, sharper, and that evolution exposed their intentions. Let others hide behind their words if they choose. Let them pretend. Let them perform. You don't need to chase the truth. The truth reveals itself to those with a discerning spirit, and you, my friend, are one of them. You're not too much. You're just too real for those who live behind masks. And that is why they cannot handle you. Your strength lies in what you no longer entertain. There comes a powerful shift in your life when you stop giving attention to things that drain you, distract you, or derail you. Growth is not only measured by what you pursue, but by what you refuse. Your strength is revealed not just in what you fight for, but in what you will no longer allow to enter your spirit. And the moment you stop entertaining what once consumed your energy, everything around you changes. People who were once comfortable taking advantage of your kindness suddenly find themselves locked out. Situations that once pulled you into chaos no longer have access. Conflict that once triggered you loses its grip. Your strength is found in your restraint, in your silence, in your refusal to be pulled backward into battles that no longer deserve your presence. There was a time when you wanted to fix everything, when you wanted to explain yourself, when you wanted to defend your intentions, when you wanted to prove your worth to people who never valued it. You used to run toward the fire because you believed peace required your effort. But now you've learned something different. Peace is created not only by what you engage in, but by what you walk away from. You discover that not every argument deserves your voice, not every insult deserves your reaction, not every betrayal deserves your explanation. Your strength lies in choosing silence where noise once ruled your life. People do not understand how powerful unbothered energy is. When you stop reacting, manipulators lose their power. When you stop explaining, liars lose their grip. When you stop trying, people who took you for granted finally feel the absence they thought they'd never experience. You shifted from trying to be understood to understanding yourself. You shifted from giving unlimited access to giving earned access. You shifted from seeking validation to moving in purpose. And that shift exposed everyone who depended on your struggle to make themselves feel superior. Some individuals were only strong because you were still trying. They were only comfortable because you kept giving. They were only bold because you kept forgiving. But once you stopped entertaining their behavior, they had to face themselves without your support, without your energy, without your presence. And that is something they never prepared for. You weren't the weak one. You were the one holding everything together. Your strength is visible now in a new way. It shows in the boundaries you set, the peace you prioritize, and the silence you choose. It shows in the people you no longer allow to text you at midnight with empty apologies. It shows in the conversations you no longer engage in. It shows in the arguments you refuse to revisit. It shows in how quickly you walk away from disrespect, manipulation, or half-hearted effort. You've learned that protecting your peace is not selfish, it is necessary. The moment you stop entertaining certain behaviors, you reclaim your power. You stop being available for disrespect. You stop being accessible to inconsistency. You stop being the emotional support for people who never supported you back. You stop being the one who bends so others can remain comfortable. You stop giving second chances to people who have already shown you who they are. Your strength comes from refusing to lower yourself to meet people in places you've outgrown. There is a maturity in no longer responding to chaos. There is a wisdom in letting people talk while you continue moving forward. There is a quiet confidence in choosing not to react. You don't need to defend your character to those committed to misunderstanding you. You don't need to fight for relationships that drain you. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth. People who cannot value you will only drain you if you allow them, and your new strength comes from no longer giving them permission. You outgrew the version of yourself that needed closure from others. You learned that closure isn't something people give you, it's something you give yourself. You no longer ask, "Why did they do this to me?" You now say, "Why did I allow them to stay so long?" That shift is powerful. That shift is healing. That shift is freedom. You reclaimed your authority over your boundaries, your emotions, and your decisions. Your silence is not emptiness, it is strategy. It is wisdom, it is self-respect. Silence creates space for clarity, and clarity creates space for elevation. When you stop entertaining distractions, your purpose gets louder, your vision becomes clearer, your path becomes brighter. You begin to attract people who respect your boundaries and understand your worth. You begin to attract opportunities that align with your peace, not your fear. Your silence is shaping your future more than any argument ever could. And here's the truth. The people who complain the loudest about your new boundaries are the ones who benefited the most from your lack of them. They don't miss you. They miss the access you once gave them. They miss the version of you that accepted everything. They miss the version of you that tolerated their behavior. They miss the version of you that fought for them more than they fought for you. But that version no longer exists, and that is your strength. You no longer allow anyone to pull you into a war within yourself. You no longer give space to negativity. You no longer let fear dictate your decisions. Your strength is in the battles you choose not to fight. Your strength is in the peace you protect. Your strength is in the dignity you maintain. You are no longer defined by what people do to you. You are defined by how you rise above it. And you rise by refusing to entertain anything beneath the level you've grown to. Your strength lies in what you no longer entertain. And because of that, you are unstoppable. You are no longer who they remember, and that threatens them. There comes a time when your evolution becomes undeniable. The version of you that people once knew, the one that tolerated mistreatment, overlooked red flags, questioned their worth, and sought validation, no longer exists. You've grown beyond that chapter. You've risen above your past patterns. You've stepped into a level of self-awareness, confidence, and spiritual strength that demands respect. But here's the truth. Not everyone is happy about your transformation. Some people feel threatened, not because you did something wrong, but because you are no longer who they remember. People liked you better when you didn't know your power. They preferred the version of you that was easy to manipulate, quick to apologize, and always willing to make sacrifices for their comfort. They were at ease when you couldn't see their intentions. They were comfortable when you didn't question their behavior. But now that you've stepped into a stronger, wiser, and more awakened version of yourself, their comfort has turned into fear because your growth exposes their stagnation. Your transformation forces people to face the truth. They can no longer treat you the way they used to because you no longer react the way you used to. You don't beg for clarity. You don't chase people who walk away. You don't entertain disrespect. You don't battle for a place in anyone's life. You don't tolerate half love, half effort, or half truths. You've raised your standards, and the moment you did, it revealed who was only in your life because of the lower version of yourself. You see, some people were connected to your wounds, not your wisdom. They were attached to your insecurities, not your strength. They benefited from your silence, not your voice. They were comfortable with you as long as you remained the version of yourself that didn't recognize your own value. But once you embraced your worth, once you healed what they helped break, once you started choosing yourself, everything shifted. Your new identity disrupts their illusion of control. It forces them to see the part they played in your pain. It forces them to acknowledge the truth they tried so hard to hide. It forces them to deal with the reality that you're no longer dependent on their approval. And that, more than anything, threatens them because you were predictable before, but now you're powerful. They cannot handle the fact that you become someone who doesn't look back, someone who has learned how to walk away without hesitation, someone who doesn't explain their decisions to people who never tried to understand them, someone who doesn't shrink themselves to make others comfortable. You've outgrown environments that once felt familiar, and when you outgrow people, they either evolve with you or resent you for changing. Your elevation is exposing their limitations. Your discipline is exposing their laziness. Your peace is exposing their chaos. Your clarity is exposing their deception. Your healing is exposing their brokenness. Your confidence is exposing their insecurity. Your progress is exposing their stagnation. And instead of working on themselves, some people would rather attack your transformation. But you don't need to go backward to make them feel better. You don't need to dim your light to match the dimness in their lives. You don't need to apologize for becoming who you were always meant to be. Growth is not betrayal. Evolution is not disrespect. Elevating your life does not require anyone's permission. You are not responsible for the version of you that lives in their memory. What they remember is no longer relevant to who you are today, because today you carry yourself differently. Your boundaries are stronger, your standards are higher, your heart is wiser, your spirit is calmer, your mind is clearer. You've learned what drains you and what fuels you. You've learned the difference between love and attachment, loyalty and convenience, presence and performance. You've learned that people who truly care will grow with you, not resent you for rising. The new you is not angry, you're aware. You're not bitter, you're healed. You're not distant, you're selective. You're not heartless, you're guarding your peace. You don't hate anyone. You simply refuse to give your energy to people who proved they don't deserve it. And that level of maturity is intimidating to those who haven't grown. People will say you've changed, as if it's an insult. But what they really mean is, you stopped allowing me to mistreat you. They say you think you're better now because they can no longer exploit your kindness. They say you're acting different because your boundaries require a level of respect they were never willing to give. But understand this, you didn't change to hurt them, you changed to heal you. Your transformation is not for their approval, it's for your destiny. You outgrew the version of yourself that settled for less. You outgrew the version of yourself that feared being alone. You outgrew the version of yourself that tolerated disrespect and called it love. You outgrew the version of yourself that lived for others instead of living for purpose. And now you are walking in a level of strength, clarity, and self-respect that demands a new environment, new relationships, new energy, and new opportunities. You are no longer who they remember, and that is your power. That is your liberation. That is your breakthrough. You didn't lose them, they lost access to you, because you are not going backward, not now, not ever.